the question I would ask is, what would be your closing remarks to the citizens of St. Louis to give you a second term? What type of vision would you are you proposing for a second term that builds upon what you've done, what you've accomplished in your first term?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've made a lot of progress on crime and public safety in my first term, and St. Louis is a lot safer, healthier, and stronger than we were 4 years ago. But we're just getting started, and we have a lot further to go. What we're proposing in my second term is rehabbing our airport, because we are a world-class city and we deserve a world-class, and my opponent is untried and untrusted. And this is not the time for amateur hour. This time calls for someone who has the experience, the relationships, and the commitment to fight for you and fight for your community, for our community.
Spencer has been elected mayor of the city of St. Louis by a wide margin, 64% to 36% of the vote, with 100% of the precincts.
St. Louis can get back to the basics of better delivery of city services that our residents and our businesses rely on.
My opponent will inherit a city that is safer than it has been in decades.
Another mayor, another eviction notice from the people. This time it was Tashara Jones was sent packing by the voters of St. Louis. We talked about her on the channel. We're going to discuss the rise and fall of this person. She didn't just step into the mayor's office. She became the first Black woman elected mayor of St. Louis. And obviously it was a very powerful moment. The city has been struggling for years with crime, population loss, and corruption, and a general vibe of we just don't know what the hell we're doing. So when Jones showed up promising transparency, accountability, the people thought maybe, just maybe, St. Louis was going to turn the corner. She ran on some big ideas, big change, big heart, all that good stuff, said that she wasn't going to just be silenced in the face of injustice, told the people that she had a plan. And for a while, it looked like she meant it. She talked about public safety, promised to rebuild trust, even hinted at bold infrastructure moves like revamping the city's airport, because in her words, St. Louis is a world-class city. We deserve a world-class airport. But here's the thing, when someone talks about upgrading the airport, you have to ask, who's it really for? Because turns out Mayor Jones loved to travel. She really loved to travel. And we're not talking about little networking here or there. We're talking about 64 trips in 3.5 years. That's 163 days gone. Almost half a year out of office days while the city tries to keep himself from collapsing. Let me show you a video breaking this stuff down a couple of months ago.
The mayor has been jet setting throughout her term. Public records revealing the mayor took 64 trips in the last 3.5 years in office. The story broken by the St. Louis Business Journal, and reporter Jacob Kern is here joining us today to talk all about it. Jacob, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah, we'll bring our viewers right up to speed, get right into some of the facts here. Take a look at this. You requested the mayor's travel reports and her work calendar. Those records show she had taken these 64 trips since taking office back in April of 2021. In total, she was away from St. Louis for 163 days. You do the math.
64 trips. She's been away for 163 days. This is the mayor of St. Louis, Tashara Jones. Hopefully I got her name pronounced right. She is living her best life. Jet sitting all over the country, I think the world as well. 64 destinations in 3.5 years. That is 163 days out of town. They're gonna mention, I think it's about 12% of her term. Let that sink in. You've been hired for a job, you're like mayor, really important job. And you're just gonna peace out over a month every year, claiming it's all a part of the gig. St. Louis, maybe St. Louis is doing really, really great, right? Just all over the place. Actually, let's see what she's been traveling to.
You find out that's about 12% of her total time in office. Now let's look at some of the trips she went on. In 2021, a trip to Dallas, meeting with Southwest Airlines CEO. 2022 to Washington, D.C., the African American Mayors Association Conference. Also that year, going to Las Vegas to meet with the International Council of Shopping Centers.
Why all these mayors are going to Vegas? I'm just saying. Well, I know a lot of people go to conventions, but stay out of Vegas.
And then the next year in New York, the Urban League Summit, she also took trips to Puerto Rico, Montreal, and Mexico City. So Jacob, in the last 3.5 years, to the general public, this might seem like a lot of travel.
Yeah, and I think that for people who have had experience in the mayor's office, it seemed like a lot of travel as well, because Lyda Crewson took a little more than 4 trips a year. Francis Slade, the top officials who were with him, they said it was even less. Freeman Bosley served in the 90s. He said he tried to leave St. Louis as infrequently as he could, because the office, it really depends on doing the operational work of the city. And there are a lot of departments that depend on the mayor. One thing to remember is that unlike in Kansas City or some of our peer towns, we don't have a city manager. So the mayor is the operational chief of the government.
Now, Mayor Tashara Jones declined to do an interview with you, but she did take to social media defending the travel. Let's take a listen.
It's important to me that our city has a seat at the table on a national level when there are opportunities for things like federal funding. My leadership positions in the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the African American Mayors Association, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, East-West Gateway, and the National League of Cities are instrumental in bringing resources to our city.
So she says a lot of these trips are really taken through the lens of opportunity. What did the mayor's office tell you about why the trips were important to make?
They gave us a lengthy list of information, 6 pages, that included $1 billion in federal money that had come to the city of St. Louis. And there were several pots of money, including different solar grants. There was a couple of grants to nonprofits that they had been involved in that did appear new for the city of St. Louis. The problem is that also they cited grants that other administrations have gotten the exact same grant.
Well.
So there was kind of a question of whether the money would be coming no matter the travel. They also cited the $500 million ARPA money that came to the city of St. Louis. The issue with that is that the formula that revealed how much St. Louis would get, it came under Mayor Crewson. It didn't come under Tashara Jones.
If this sounds familiar, it should. It's giving big Tiffany Hayden energy. You know, the other mayor has been clocking tons of travel miles instead of running a village. Except in this case, Jones didn't get caught misusing funds directly, but the optics, bad. While residents were dealing with crime, crumbling streets, and budget gaps, Jones was taking advantage and taking meetings in Puerto Rico, Mexico City, New Orleans, and New York. Some of the trips were paid by outside organizations, others by her campaign or contingency funds. Her defense is there were opportunities to get St. Louis a seat at the national table. She pointed to grants, funding boosts, and federal dollars she helped secure. And obviously, as you see from that video previously, a lot of that was full of crap. Flexing money from the previous administration. That's pretty pathetic. People started to wonder if she was more interested in flying than fixing. Now, Jones wasn't just a rookie in the travel game. Looking back, even as a city treasurer, she was logging those international miles. She was going to Paris, she was going to Vegas, the White House, all paid, at least in part, by public funds. So when she brought the same energy to the mayor's office, people started connecting those dots. It wasn't corruption in the classic sense, but it sure looked like someone had confused public service with personal lifestyle. And then came the storm. Literally, in 2024, St. Louis got hit with a snowstorm that exposed everything. Then came the storm. Literally, St. Louis got hit with a snowstorm that exposed everything. The city shut down like a bootleg generator. Roads were iced over, trash went uncollected, and basic services vanished. The mayor's office tried to spin it, saying that they were handling it, but residents weren't buying it. When a snowstorm makes your city look like a failed state and the mayor is still on a speaking tour somewhere, people notice and they got mad. Enter Kyra Spencer. She ran against Jones back in 2021 and lost. But in 2025, she came back with a message that was so clear and simple to cut through all the noise. Back to the basics. Fix the streets, pick up the trash, keep the mayor in the actual city. Jones wasn't having it though. She came out swinging with some shade that had a little heat on it, saying Kyra had never run for anything or managed anybody.
The Democrats party in your city endorsed Spencer over you. And, you know, what is your closing message to the voters why they should give you a second term?
My closing message to the voters is that we have to continue the progress that we're already on. When I was elected in 2021, I inherited a crisis because we were still trying to work our way out of a global pandemic. Homicides were at an all-time high. And yes, services weren't being delivered. So my team and I have gotten to work, and we've been able to make a lot of progress. My opponent is a math major and has never run anything or managed anybody.
Obviously, Jones flexed her 20 years in elected office like it was some kind of championship belt, reminding folks that she navigated the pandemic, dropped homicide rates, and brought big money into neglected neighborhoods. To her, this wasn't a time for amateur hour. It's a grown folks job, and Spencer didn't have the resume. But Spencer campaigned like someone who actually wanted to do the job. And that message hit hard. Voters showed up, and when the dust settled, Jones had been smoked. A 64 to 36% landslide, the kind of loss that doesn't just end a political run, it kind of writes a eulogy. Spencer gave a classy victory speech, even thanked Jones for her service, but the tone was clear. This was a change election. People were tired of the flights, tired of the fluff. They wanted their potholes filled, not passport stamped. But the backlash didn't stop there. A city alderwoman introduced a proposal to limit the mayor's powers and hand over responsibilities to the key administrator. Translation, the people in government wanted to make sure that no future mayor could ever ghost a city like this again. That bill will be going into a public vote in 2026, but the writing was already on the wall. Jones tried to spin the narrative on her way out. She said that she was leaving the city safer, stronger, and financially safer than when she found it, which makes no sense because if that was true, you would have been reelected. So obviously, that's not necessarily accurate.
My opponent will inherit a city that is safer than it has been in decades. A city looking at billions of dollars in incoming investments with hundreds of millions of dollars being spent as we speak to lift up every community in St. Louis. They will inherit countless projects that I started.
But she pointed out to some homelessness initiatives, some job training programs and investment in some neglected communities. But it was too little, too late. The damage has already been done, not by crime stats or missing funds, but just by your absence. You can't lead a city if the city can't find you. The story of Mayor Jones is not one of scandal necessarily, but just misplaced priorities. She rolls on a wave of history, good intentions and a lot of promises, but she fell because leadership isn't about press briefings. But she fell because leadership isn't about press releases or panels. It's about being present. When your city is struggling, you don't get to play jet setter. You don't get to be Tiffany 2.0. You stay home, you show up, you do the job. I wonder if she's going to travel as often as she was as a regular citizen without the taxpayers footing the bill. It might hit different when the flight alerts are coming from your own credit card. But let me know what you guys think about this story in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.